I think a lot of people remember the release of the HomePod. This is one of the best smart speakers because of its sound. Even if Siri was still lacking a bit, I never really got my hands on one for a very long time, and I did actually intend on getting one to review. But then the HomePod Mini released and it immediately caught my attention. So today I'm going to be offering my thoughts on the HomePod Mini and letting you know if it is worth $100. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Before we continue, I just want to remind you that we have a Twitch channel where we stream every Friday and Saturday from 8 p.m. and to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, so why not go ahead and drop a follow? And also don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and also make sure to check out the merch store. There's plenty of black and white sweetness to choose from up there, so go ahead and check that out. And then make sure to take a look at the podcast as well, as the podcast always goes live every Wednesday and Sunday. And with that said, enough rambling, let us get straight into the video. And let's begin with an unboxing. The HomePod Mini comes in this cute little box, and the first thing that you're going to want to do is actually go ahead and remove the plastic wrapping and then remove the lid itself. Inside, you'll immediately be greeted by the HomePod Mini itself. It looks quite nice and classy, of course. And put it aside to look at the documentation for it, and underneath that you will also find the power brick. The exterior design consists of this fabric mesh style of material, and the Mini feels very nice to the touch, and soft for that matter, by the way. It is very small, but certainly larger than the Nest Mini, though this one is much more rounded, I would say. On top, you will find this interesting display that reflects a light, and depending on the status of the Mini. You will also find playback controls, all of which are going to be touch-based, so you have volume up, down, and you also have a single tap to play and pause music or other media, for instance. And the Mini connects over USB-C, and the cable is attached to it directly. By the way, it is worth noting that the Mini only works with the power brick that it came with. I actually tried a bunch of other USB-C power brick, and I mean high wattage USB-C power bricks, so not like any weak ones by any means, and it simply refused to stay on with those other ones, so it looks like it only works with Apple's. So I'm very glad that Apple actually included a power brick here. Otherwise, we would have had a pretty big problem, but that's besides the point. So far, the Mini is looking pretty good. And now, as you all already know, the smart speaker operates over Siri, but keep in mind that Siri has constantly been improving over the last few years. While she's not quite as powerful as the Google Assistant, I haven't really found much of an issue with that since I need Siri to manage very simple tasks anyway. But Siri will light up and respond every time that you say the magic words. However, the HomePod Mini, much like the HomePod, is only compatible with Apple Music and will not work with Spotify. More on that soon, but luckily they gave me a 3-month trial of Apple Music, so I do at the very least have that to mess around with. Siri has been pretty responsive here actually, with hardly any delay at all. When I call upon her and when I ask her to do anything, she pretty much responds right away, which has always been pretty cool. And when it comes to playback controls and things like that, I've hardly found any kind of delay. This seems like a very well optimized device for sure, and it's just really nice. So certainly it is going to be faster than the Nest Mini from my experience. And if you need weather information, reminders, alarms, and much more, you can get it through the HomePod Mini just fine. No problems there. Now, but let's get into the actual sound quality. The HomePod Mini did surprise me here, since it packs quite the punch for such a condensed little package. It's tiny, but does get very loud and has quite a bit of bass, at least enough to make bass-heavy genres pretty enjoyable. It's not chest-thumping bass by any means, but it is actually pretty good. However, I would say that its best qualities actually come really in how loud it gets. It's good enough to surround a relatively large room like this entire attic, for instance, and even then, at its highest volume, is way too loud if you leave the HomePod Mini on one side of the room and you're on the other side. Like, it really does get that loud, even just as like nice ambient music to have in the background. This is an absolute monster when it comes to that, but even better, no matter how loud the HomePod Mini gets, I can still say the magic words and she'll listen for a command, which is really nice. So yeah, go ahead and have a listen with some demos here. Hey Siri, play Queen of Winter Throned by Cradle of Filth.
Now playing Queen of Winter Throned by Cradle of Filth.
Even a man who is pure in heart and speaks in prayer by night may become a wolf when the wolf's thing blooms and the winter moon is bright.
Play EXO Tour Life by Lil Uzi Vert.
EXO Tour Life by Lil Uzi Vert now playing. Now playing Her Ghost in the Fog by Cradle of Filth.
Have with In Death Unchained. Since we were kind of on the topic of working out too, this game is definitely shoulder workout more than anything, but you probably won't be sweating a lot here. This game retails for about $30 and there's some free content actually coming fairly soon. And now on to my complaints. I really don't like that the HomePod series in general isn't compatible with Spotify. This is honestly a real shame, since from my experience, Apple Music doesn't have absolutely everything that I want to listen to. Now, for the most part, Spotify has almost everything I like, when Apple Music might fall short in some songs or albums from certain artists, which is a shame, and a big one for me at that. Also, I don't love that it needs that specific USB-C brick. It makes a universal port feel more proprietary. Do you see the issue here? You better not lose the specific power brick. Even if you have other high-powered USB-C bricks around your house, it's only going to work with this one. Also, I really wish that this cable was detachable. It seems like a very high quality cable, so I don't think that it is going to break. It is a braided cable after all, which is quite nice. But if it happens to break somehow, it would be nice to just get a new USB-C cable instead of an entirely new HomePod Mini if the cable happens to break or if anything happens to it, by the way. You know, like the Google Nest Mini, for instance, has a completely detachable cable. Again, this is going to be unfortunate. Google doesn't really hold you back this way with the Nest Mini. Also, I wish that I didn't need to use an iPhone specifically to set this thing up and use it. You can use an iPad too if you have one as well, but I'm mostly an Android guy, which means that if I didn't happen to have an iPhone or an iPad Pro for work purposes, then honestly I wouldn't have been able to use this. I would have been completely SOL, which is very unfortunate. Even though, you know, I still bought the speaker, but because I don't have the right phone, I can't use it with it. Again, like, not the case for me specifically, but imagine that. And I don't think this is a perfect speaker, but I'm going to be honest and say that it is worth $100 easily. It does have its flaws, mostly in that I haven't used a device that is this restricted and walled off from anything that isn't Apple specific, which, while expected from Apple, is a very extreme measure to forcing you into the ecosystem. This does not sit very well in my mind, and I wouldn't bother with this line of speakers at all if I didn't already have an iPhone or an iPad. I think that is a pretty ridiculous requirement, and also the requirement of only being able to use Apple Music with this thing is pretty stupid, and definitely not worth the transition in my opinion, believe me. However, if you do already own these devices, but more so have them as your primary devices, then I think that you will really like the HomePod Mini, because if you're already an Apple user, you've honestly just got a speaker that works really well for you. You've got everything that you need here. But let's say that you're an Apple user that doesn't use Apple Music. That's not good enough. You better pony up, because Apple doesn't want anyone else's plants in their walled garden. So is the HomePod Mini great? Absolutely, under the right circumstances. But it's a real shame that it's this guarded, and I hope to see this restriction be lifted someday, because this is absolutely ridiculous. And that's essentially my verdict. And with that said, if you are interested in purchasing the HomePod Mini, then I'll be making sure to leave links down to Amazon in the description. And I'm also going to be leaving links to Luster, which is going to be a pretty cool service for actually helping you find sales all across the web, and it's even going to show you a tier list of anything of other products that are pretty similar to the HomePod Mini. So I strongly recommend that you look into that too. Links to that down below. And not to mention that Abunda is also an option. Like, let's say that maybe you are interested in this, but you don't want to pay full price for it, or you just can't really buy it right away, then Abunda is going to allow you to finance it over time without the need of a credit card. So that's going to be pretty awesome, pretty simple. Links to that down below. If you use any of my links, I get a small commission that does help out the channel quite a bit, so I would appreciate that quite a bit. Also, do make sure to stop by the Tech Summit podcast that does go live every week now, so do make sure to subscribe for that as well. And I also like to stream every Friday and Saturday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time, so do make sure to stop by for that. And do make sure to follow me on the rest of my social media, like my Instagram and my Twitter and things like that. But with that said, this has been Francisco from Tech Summit. Thank you for watching, and I will be seeing you all later. Enjoy.